everybody, welcome to today's show. My name is Jonathan. I'm one of the commissioners here at Masters Fantasy Leagues. Joined today by three of my friends. Owner of the company, John Beast, two of our draft coordinators, Al, the Doc. What's up, guys?
How you doing?
Doing good.
Real good. It's actually the 2020 season is wrapping up, but we actually want to do a year in review show, taking a look back at 2020, talk about some of the most interesting things we've seen from that season. I'm going to start right into it with the biggest surprise of 2020.
I thought the biggest surprise was actually all the injuries at the beginning of the season, because the preseason rolled through. We had the COVID, there was no preseason, and there were no injuries. I mean, at the start of the season, everybody was healthy, and then all of a sudden the season started. If you go and look at the first round of your draft, you will see how important it is that third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth rounds are, because basically the first two rounds in every draft was basically a wipeout.
Yeah.
There was the Dalvin Cooks, but I'm not even gonna list them all, but Michael Thomas, Saquon Barkley, take that one, CMC. They were all hurt. They all did basically nothing.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. Actually, for me, the most surprising thing was that there was an NFL season. I just sat here, all off season, we had no idea what to do, how this was going to work out. Right. It just seemed like it went off without a hitch, basically.
Yeah.
Shockingly.
It's amazing. It's week 16. Every single game was played, for the first 16 weeks. Yeah. We had some rescheduling type stuff, but no fantasy games were really impacted in the sense that they all went on. Some players missed a couple games here and there, but pretty seamless for how hectic of a year we thought it would be.
I agree. Just kind of kudos to the NFL and how they handled it. I thought it went really well.
I do too.
And sitting here today doing payouts, wrapping the season up, I was just sitting there thinking about it. And I'm like, hey, man, it turned out to be a really good fantasy season. A lot of ups and downs, and like you pointed out, injuries. I actually think a lot of that was no preseason. I think I kind of expected it a little bit.
Yeah.
You always see that, when a guy hasn't played, and maybe tweak a hamstring from not a lot of practice. So
I don't know if the doc has anything on this, but one injury common theme I feel like I saw this year that usually doesn't happen, because it's usually an injury that happens to older players, is I feel like so many young players tore Achilles this year, and that's usually such a devastating injury. But we saw guys like Marlon Mack, Grant Delpit in his rookie year, and just around the league, I felt like a lot of torn Achilles, and usually you see that in older guys, but I don't know if it's because of a weird off season, guys weren't as active maybe. I don't know.
That definitely goes into it a little bit. Luckily though, a torn Achilles isn't the death sentence it used to be for production and getting back to where you used to be. So, I feel a lot better for those guys than I would have 5 years ago. Yeah. So if one of your guys blew his Achilles this year, it might not be the end of the world. Like it might have been had he done it a while ago. So
yeah,
something to look forward to.
And another thing I think is really interesting, we were talking about it today, the NFL possibly adding an extra game to the schedule, because there was no preseason this year. I kind of think they've seen how it went. I think that is something they're going to take seriously. I just want your guys' thoughts on, perhaps being another game in the season, how that impacts your fantasy season, and what you guys think about it.
I read a little bit about that today, and I saw this is almost a lot that's going to happen. It is in the CBA that the NFL can put a 17th game in. I personally, Roger, if you're listening to me, I think it's a mistake. I'd rather see just add, you want 18 weeks, add an extra bye week. That's my own personal opinion. But hey, more football. But I definitely like the idea of 18 weeks. I definitely like that a lot.
So a little bit off the topic of the extra week, but just talking about more football and even the year of COVID, the one thing I did love is how many doubleheader Monday nights, some Tuesday night football, a Wednesday night game. I kind of loved all the rescheduling, and I felt like we were getting football 4 days a week sometimes.
Yeah,
it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, it was really good. Yeah. I'm all about, hey, Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
get a
Monday,
couple Tuesday
Thursday,
night football
Friday,
games
Sunday,
in there.
Tuesday. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Hey, we're all in on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That was a lot of fun.
Definitely.
Tuesday, 7 a.m. Who knows?
Was there one Wednesday game? There was a Wednesday game, wasn't there?
Was that one that was at
Ravens?
3 o'clock? Ravens.
Yeah, because they had the tree lighting or whatever.
National Christmas tree, good.
We had a couple 5 p.m. games on Monday evenings. Just interesting stuff.
Okay. And another question I wanted to ask here. The MVP, your guys' MVP of the fantasy season this year.
It's tough, and I feel like this isn't a super hot take or anything, But one of our previous shows, I heard you say when you're doing payouts, you saw a lot of Travis Kelce teams. And I just feel like Kelce was the epitome of just consistency. He's second in the league in receiving yards. And as a tight end, that's like absolutely unreal. 1,400 yards through 16 games. And I just feel like, I mean, I lost to a guy who his starting lineup didn't look that good, but he had Travis Kelce in there, was able to plug and play guys like McKissick and Jeffrey Wilson in week 16, and he won the championship. And mainly because of Kelce, just helped him all year. Just that consistency in the tight end position just gives you so much flexibility to just kind of plug and play with your other flex spots. But yeah, I mean, with Kittle going down, it was clear cut. Kelce was number one, and no one else really challenged him.
Yeah, I agree.
I like that. I was gonna say James Robinson, but the fact that he missed championship week kind of takes him out of the discussion for me. So I'm gonna go with another weird one. I'm gonna go with Ryan Tannehill, and I'm gonna go with Ryan Tannehill because not only was he probably finished like top 7, 6-ish. I don't know. I feel like he was kind of around there the whole season. I don't have the exact number, but I mean, I had him on like 4 teams, and I picked him up in every single one. So to get that kind of value, I mean, it's crazy. There's people drafting Lamar in the first round or Mahomes in the first round, and I got a guy that was a top 7, 8 quarterback in 3 or 4 of my leagues for nothing, dirt cheap, completely free. Just picked him up, and he produced at a high level for me. So he was my MVP. I won a league basically because of him. Because I also had Big Ben, who's washed.
My MVP was all the wide receiver rookies.
Yeah.
Because ever since I've been playing fantasy football, which goes back quite a while, rookies, it's all wide receiver. The running backs always produce the first year, but the rookie wide receivers, it's always supposed to be 2. It's it's year 3 breakout year for rookie wide receivers. And this year there were so many of them that broke out, and so many in the second round. Even in redraft or dynasty, T. Higgins, Chase Claypool, they all.
Yeah.
We're really rocking this year.
Yeah, the list goes on and on. It was a good year to have a lot of draft picks for sure.
Really good year.
One of the things I find funny about that, and maybe not my MVP for the season, but 2 guys that I think were just amazing to have on your team, and they were on your waiver wire. You said James Robinson. I think slipped my mind. Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at these rookie drafts. I mean, such a year, so many explosive players coming in. There was 2 guys that, I mean, if Justin Herbert got drafted, it was probably in the 3rd round. He probably got dropped. James Robinson probably wasn't even drafted. I didn't even know who he was. I mean, 2 guys that were huge contributors on your team. And I know it happens every year, but I'm just looking back at the draft, and I'm saying, like, guys, do your homework. Like, don't, just disregard 3rd round picks. Like, I mean, there's guys out there. It's just shot like every pundit, every guy that, I mean, we did 100 shows and we never spoke about these 2 guys.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's not just this year. I mean, going back, I can remember in kind of like our original league, I think I drafted David Johnson, Ian Stephon Diggs in the 3rd round of rookie drafts. And I think I had even dropped them later, traded them for hardly anything, which I regret doing now. But I mean, there's talented guys every single year who go 3rd round, and some of them might not hit right away, but there's a lot of talent in these real NFL drafts. So in your rookie drafts, you're able to get guys who went in the 3rd, 4th round of the NFL draft, in your 3rd round of your rookie draft, and they're gonna hit. A lot of these 3rd round running backs are exciting. Just takes an opportunity and a chance, and they'll get them eventually.
Yeah, and I can't help but think, go back and check out John Beese's Dynasty Sorcerer series. He talks a lot about that.
I was going to mention that. I don't, want to foreshadow the next Sorcerer episode, but it has to do with 3rd round picks and how to take advantage of those. It's a pretty easy way to do it.
Yeah, it's huge. Honestly, I can remember trying to trade back into our 3rd round and pick David Johnson, and Alec took him right before with the guy I was trying to trade with. And I think of like Alvin Kamara, I got in the top of the 2nd round just because I watched so much college football. I was like, I've seen this guy. He's incredible.
Yeah.
He's an incredible player, and I know he's not going to start over Mark Ingram, but maybe he gets some kind of play. I mean, those are the kinds of things you have to do your research on, like they said. I mean, do your homework. You find these guys that you like. You pick good players. I mean, it seems to work itself out most times. If the guy's good, he's going to get on the field and produce.
Yeah.
It's so hard to keep those late round picks when you have to make cuts. So that's the hardest thing to do.
That's really the tough part. is just kind of working out how to make the whole thing work, especially if you have a lot of third-round picks too. You got a bunch of guys that you have no real reason to keep.
All right.
I kept KJ Hamler for probably half the season this year just because I liked him out of college, but like he had no real value.
I went and picked him up based on what I said.
Yeah.
You dropped him, I picked him up.
Yeah, I almost picked him back up after you dropped him again.
Yeah, and I guess I'm gonna do this next one to ask you guys' biggest regret, and I'm just gonna start it out and say, like, one of my biggest regrets is I got lazy on the waiver wire one week, and it kind of goes with James Robinson. I went in real big. When the Leonard Fournette news came out, I went and picked up Raquel Armstead in every single league. Blew a nice amount of my blind bidding dollars. Then ended up on COVID. The next week, I'm like, I'm not going to do it again. A lot of guys did. I think you picked up James Robinson for like half of what I paid for.
I picked him up twice.
Yeah, and a lot of guys did, but it just, to me, I kind of look back on it and laugh. Like, it was one of my biggest regrets was not going out the second week and following through with what I tried to do the first week.
I think I do recall not too many episodes ago you were teasing me about picking up Myles Gaskin and going and getting him in trades right now. He'd be really cheap. He won a lot of people some leagues yesterday.
Yeah, he did. Gosh, I would say my biggest regret's kind of similar to yours, JK, where I feel like I shouldn't have put so much faith in the guys that I drafted early, and I should have been more active on the waiver wire. You get in that spot where you like guys on your bench, but injuries kind of take over. I had a lot of teams that were like Mixon and Miles Sanders, like both guys that missed a ton of time. I had a lot of Clyde teams where Clyde wasn't really doing the job, but I kept holding out hope and I wasn't really pushing anything. And for that, sometimes, if they don't got it, they don't got it. You gotta find some guys on the waiver wire while you can, because, after a while, it's going to be slim pickings, and you're going to be stuck with a team that's either banged up or isn't performing like you thought they would. In the one case that didn't work out was I kept Jonathan Taylor, held on to hope with him, and he ended up winning me a couple of leagues. But besides that, I gotta, you gotta be more active on those waiver wires, like JK said. That's pretty much the end of the day. Not have as much faith in the guys you drafted,
Right.
especially if they can't stay on the field.
So one of my biggest regrets, and we talk about this rookie class being phenomenal, I was too afraid to start him a lot of weeks,
Yeah.
In the one league we're all in, I think I had Jonathan Taylor, who I did start Taylor a bunch, but then I had Cam Akers, Brandon Ayuk, Michael Pittman as well, and Ayuk had a phenomenal stretch where he was putting up 15 plus points a game. I think I don't know what kind of record it was, but he had a little stretch where it was just unreal numbers for rookie receivers, and I didn't start him a single time. Even though the matchups were good, I'd throw, one of who I thought was a better receiver in there just because, they're more of a stud. But, these rookie receivers came to produce year one. Then Cam Akers had a couple monster games. And then I think in Jonathan Taylor's first real breakout game, I had Wayne Gallman in there over him because I had finally kind of given up on Jonathan Taylor for the time being.
I
And
think that was against me.
I think it was too, yeah. And so just then, you start looking at what your optimal lineup would have been, seeing, matchups you would have won had you just trusted yourself, put the guys you drafted in, believe in them, and not be afraid to start the rookies.
A lot easier with running backs and wide receivers that did that.
Yeah.
And Justin Jefferson was another one. What a season he had. It was an epic season for that man.
Yeah, he's another one. I have him in a league, and I kept him on the bench so many times. I don't know why. I was just too afraid to pull the trigger and put him in the starting lineup, and then he'd have 35 points on the bench, and I was kicking myself.
Yeah, I did it with CD Lamb a couple times. I just kept thinking, Amari Cooper, Gallup. He had a good game, but that's a fluke.
Yeah.
He just kept doing it week after week. Speaking of another rookie, I just got to ask you guys, John, I know you were highly invested. I believe you were highly invested in Clyde Edwards-Helaire this season.
I was.
To me, the guy, I'm looking back, and I'm disappointed in him. Situation was perfect. The minute Kansas City drafted him, we couldn't, talk highly enough about this guy. What happened there?
Yeah, honestly, and I didn't say it, but earlier when you asked biggest shock, that was mine. I am very surprised at how little he did in such a perfect situation. It's very disappointing.
I don't feel like he cost me games. He was putting up 14 to 4. He was putting up 14 to 18. He wasn't winning me games, but he wasn't costing me games.
Yeah.
That's fair.
There was other bad decisions I made that cost me games.
Yeah. It wasn't like Jonathan Taylor where it was I can't even start this guy anymore. Clyde was start worthy at least. He just wasn't like going above and beyond like we thought he would.
Yeah, it was like starting Miles Gaskin.
Yeah.
Not that exciting.
It wasn't starting like James Robinson
Right.
every week.
Yeah, it just shocked me.
No, it's like I text you guys though. Is James Robinson a system running back? Because Daria Gumbawale he was feasting a little bit the other day.
Say that again.
Daria Gumbawale.
There you go.
That's why he's the doc. He pronounced that.
Yeah.
He knew about it. He tells you everything you want to know. What school was he from?
Wisconsin, I believe.
Yeah.
That's one of them phone calls I don't like to take as a commissioner.
Yeah.
Hey, commissioner, I want to open. Girl, look, how do you spell it? That's one of them tough ones. I mean, any other big disappointments for you guys this year?
So this wasn't really a disappointment, but just one thing like I was completely wrong on, and I said it on the show early on, and I just thought the Calvin Ridley hype early on was like way too high. I mean, I think he's a good player, but just never thought he'd put up the numbers he did, and he sure produced this year. I mean, he proved me wrong, and he knocked me out of playoff matchups too, going up against Calvin Ridley when he had a couple touchdowns just like week 14 or whatever it was. But yeah, I was shocked at how big of a year Calvin Ridley had. I do think Julio missed a lot of games, which helped. I mean, he was getting just a ton of targets and opportunities. But Calvin Ridley had a phenomenal year, and I'll admit I was wrong in saying, pass on him, he's getting overdrafted, blah, blah, blah. Because he lived up to it.
Yeah, before I give you mine, I just want that baton has been officially passed.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, but mainly because he was injured. I mean, he
Injuries,
just wasn't on the field. But yeah.
I think this is the beginning of the end for Julio.
Yeah, kind of think back to when Roddy White got faded a little bit by Julio. I think we're going to see the same thing here with Julio. Really interesting stuff. For me, you got something to say?
They say like when Aaron Rodgers got
There you go.
not Aaron Rodgers,
Brett
Brett Favre by Aaron
When
Rodgers.
Aaron
Got the
Rodgers
same
gets
deal.
the boot by Jordan Love.
And mine, the thing I'm going to admit I think I was most wrong about, I was really hard on Deshaun Watson. I guaranteed Tom Brady would outscore him. I figured he'd fall outside of the top 12. I mean, dude, he's elite. He impressed me all season, and I know Fuller stepped up and Cooks. I mean, to me, these guys aren't like legit number ones. I think Fuller's a really good number two. I think the same thing with Cooks. But I mean, hey man, Watson balled with them. Even after Fuller went out, he put up some good games. I won't talk about Deshaun Watson anymore. I think he's going to be a stud for years to come. I think Houston will fix that problem, get him a true number one. And I mean, to me, all the guys who drafted him as a top 5 quarterback in dynasty redraft leagues, you were right. I was wrong.
You know, when you're getting to the 7th, 8th round of your draft, when you're drafting players during your draft, you're drafting rookies, when you're picking players up on the waiver wires at the wide receivers, who's the quarterback? Because if they're attached to Deshaun Watson, the best one's Russell Wilson. I mean, I'm not saying Tyler Lockett. I mean, he may be a great player. All I know is I think Russell Wilson made Tyler Lockett.
Yeah,
Well, I think we could also kind of just throw in there disappointed in myself for doubting Josh Allen.
I was gonna bring it
I
up
think
as well.
this whole
I'll say it. I was wrong. I was wrong with Josh Allen.
It's
third?
probably. It was pretty high.
Second or third?
I will say that I faded my own predictions, so I had him on multiple teams, and he took a huge jump. There's nothing else to say, and the same for Diggs.
Yeah.
Diggs was more like a COVID thing. Like, I loved Diggs as a player. I just kind of thought he'd come in. Josh Allen's not going to get him the ball because Josh Allen
was wildly inaccurate.
He can complete maybe 50% of his passes on a good day. So I thought that's going to be a disaster. I could not have been more wrong. Josh Allen has looked incredible, and Diggs has been the best receiver in football this year. I don't think there's any doubt on that.
If you had to redraft that draft, you think the Browns would take Josh Allen over Baker?
I would hope so. I would think so.
Right now, that's the thing, is that it's only been 1 year. Because Josh Allen was pretty bad throwing the ball his first 2 years. Like, statistically, it's not, but very inaccurate. He turns the ball over just as much, if not more, than Baker. And this year, it's been different for both of them. But
I'm going to say absolutely, because I think Baker has more weapons. I don't even think it's really that close at all.
Well, once Odell went down, though, I don't think so.
Well, that's the weird part, though, because Baker's done a lot of
I know, right. But,
With less weapons.
I would take Landry, Chubb, and Hunt over
running backs,
Diggs and John Brown. Or,
Yeah.
So even without Beckham, I like the weapons that we have here on offense. And I don't even think it's that close.
Hey, on a finishing note, don't hang up on Odell Beckham Jr.
Oh,
I
no.
still think he's the best. I'm not. God, it's hard to say he's the best. I mean, I thought he's the best wide receiver in football when the Browns got him.
Right.
I did. And I still think he's a great wide
I agree.
receiver.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we'll have some sleeper episodes coming up. He's a guy I got my eye on, especially if he gets shipped out of Cleveland.
Yeah.
Ends up in a better
Yeah.
situation for him. I do think he could reclaim the spot as a, top 5, 10 type wide receiver. I just saw that Justin Jefferson's stats were up, showing rookie wide receiver
Since
season.
Odell type,
Odell's sitting
yeah.
right up there, man. That hasn't went away.
Yeah.
All right, anything else you guys want to add for the 2020 season?
That's all I got.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap up our 2020 season in review. Thank you so much for listening. Hey, if you want, leave a comment and tell us what was the biggest shock and surprise to you guys. We'd love to hear from you. Another thing about here at Masters, just want to put it out there, 600 Dynasty Leagues. How many have we folded, John?
0.
We've never folded a single one. If you're looking for a place to play Dynasty football, come be a part of the Masters family. We'd love to have you.